Alright everyone, it's finally that time. I can't deny it any longer after what I just did in this new dungeon encounter solo. I haven't done a build video on this because I have played it so much over the last few years, and I have been leaning more towards the consecration slam builds on the Solar Titan because I just find it to be more enjoyable. So I finally decided to run Bonk Hammer since the mod update and Solar 3.0 because if I remember correctly, I have never done a straight up Bonk build since all the changes happened. And I'm just gonna say it, I think this is the best all-around build in Destiny 2, and if you're attempting the new dungeon, I urge you all to run this because it is going to make your time in there so much better, especially if you're LFG'ing for it, because you might have to be doing a bit of a carry, and this build will let you do just that. Also, if you're trying to solo it or solo flawless it, I think this is your best bet by far because it brings both survivability and power, and you need both of those to accomplish a solo run or a solo flawless. Oh, and let me tell you, being able to create an orb of power on every hammer throw and kill is so nice now. I couldn't believe how quick I was getting my super back, and since Bungie buffed both Solar Titan supers, it's been really nice. But before we get into the meat of this build, we have a sponsor on today's video. So you all know I love builds here on the YouTube channel, and Raid Shadow Legends offers me so many different build options and playstyles that it just keeps me coming back to play more and more, and I think some of you would really enjoy it as well. The two biggest reasons I keep playing is because of the clan boss and the Hydra boss. Both of these are super tough PvE bosses that you and your clan take down together, and it challenges your champions and the builds that you should be running on each champion to optimize each run for the best outcome. Those various builds for each champions is what I love building and testing and then sharing them all with my clan. Raid Shadow Legends itself is getting a huge update with a load of cool new content, and it's all related to the limited series which is called Call of the Arbiter. This is a really cool animated series that you all should check out. We're talking new champions, a new artifact set, events, and more. There's even a whole load of champion bios that have just been added to the game. Also, with the Call of the Arbiter animated series, Raid is adding some of the new characters as champions, and the first one is the fearsome orc warlord Artak. Just by logging into Raid for 7 days between now and July 24th, you can add this awesome champion to your collection. With all of this exciting stuff and more coming to Raid, if you haven't started playing yet, then use my link in the description or scan my QR code that you see on screen here to get some great bonuses. We're talking a free epic champion in Talia and a bunch of other useful things to kickstart your experience. I hope you all enjoy Raid as much as I have and give it a shot if you haven't played it before. Thank you so much to Raid for sponsoring this video. Okay, so the first thing I want to mention is the artifact. There are no artifact mods that coincide with this build, so this build stands the test of time, and that's what makes it really, really good. Nothing in the artifact is going to enhance this, and this build works perfectly on its own. And the next thing I want to talk about is one weapon, and that's Tractor Cannon. Tractor Cannon puts that 30% debuff on enemies, so your little throwing hammer can do 30% more damage to anything that you tag with it. Also, in this dungeon, it works really well because it suppresses those Hive Guardians, so it can take them out of those supers and a lot easier to deal with that way. But you don't technically have to use Tractor Cannon, and an easier content or different type of content like maybe a Grandmaster, you definitely don't have to have it on. For the subclass, you're gonna want to use that throwing hammer. That's what this whole build is built around. And then I take Healing Grenade. Healing Grenade is just in case you hit low health at a certain point. You're gonna throw that grenade at the ground and heal yourself up instantly because it applies a cure effect and then restoration after that. And we're gonna get this Healing Grenade back very quickly thanks to our throwing hammer. For the two aspects, we're gonna take Roaring Flames. That's gonna stack 3 times and give us a nice boost to our melee damage. And that is for our abilities, which includes our melee throwing hammer. And then we're also going to take Soul Invictus. This allows that throwing hammer when it kills something to create a sunspot. A sunspot is very important to create because that's your restoration, and we're going to chain this restoration with our fragments. And those sunspots also apply Scorch, so they deal some decent damage to PvE combatants. For the fragments, you're going to take Ember of Torches. This is going to make you radiant for a 25% weapon bonus damage all the time. It wasn't as important in this fight that you see on screen, but that's very important in like Grandmasters or even in the boss room because it's going to give you a 25% weapon damage bonus to you and allies if you're running it with teammates. Next, we're going to take Ember of Solace. Radiant restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. This is just going to boost restoration radiant up to 12 seconds. And then we also have Ember of Empyrean. Solar weapon or ability final blows extend the duration of restoration and radiant. This is going to make it so that throwing hammer can just keep reprocking restoration and extend it all the time, so we always have that 12-second buff up. And then the last fragment is completely up to you guys. This one is interchangeable with a lot of different things. For this specific dungeon, I took Ember of Beams. Your solar super projectiles have stronger target acquisition, just to make sure I could hit those throwing hammers in this room and in the boss room. For your stats on the build, you want 100 resilience for that tinkiness, and then the rest of the stats can be in whatever you want, because this build is so self-sustained that those stats really don't matter except for your resilience. For our exotic of choice, we are taking Synthoceps. This is the biotic enhancement armor perk that has, and it increases our melee lunge range and improves our melee and super damage when we're surrounded. So we get a nice buff to that throwing hammer and to our super damage. This is where a big portion of your damage comes into play, is from Synthoceps. So make sure you have those procced. You just need to have 3 enemies near you, and that's very easy to do, especially in this particular dungeon. For the mods on the build, on the helmet, we're going to take hands-on to get some bonus super energy, and then I took 2 heavy ammo finders just to make sure I always had heavy in both boss fights. On the gauntlets, these mods are important because heavy-handed is going to cause your powered melee final blows to create an orb of power, so every throwing hammer we throw is going to create an orb of power, and then also impact induction, causing damage with the melee attack reduces your grenade cooldown. Basically, every other hammer throw that you hit on an enemy is going to proc this, and that's going to feed that healing grenade, and that's why we always have it available. Your last mod in the gauntlets can be whatever you want. I took a solar loader just in the boss room, load my solar weapons. On the chest piece, this is damage reduction in 2 slots, and then the 3rd slot I had charged up, increased the maximum number of stacks of armor charge you can carry by 1. So now I can hold 4 armor charges. Every time I throw that mini hammer and pick up the orb of power, that's going to give me an armor charge. I stack it 4 times, and it's easy to keep that up at all times because you're always killing things with your melee. And the reason I do that is so I have a minute boost on my solar weapon surge on my boots. I have stacked this 3 times for a 22% weapon damage boost on any solar weapon I do. That's just to send our solar weapons over the top, especially when you're solo, to make sure you're outputting as much damage as possible. This was also mostly taken advantage of in the boss room. And then on your class item, I had 2 time dilations on to make those armor charges last as long as possible. You could technically drop one of these time dilations and maybe put on powerful attraction or something, but as you saw, I never even used my class ability. And then the last mod on my class item is Bomber, which again, didn't even use it because I wasn't using my class ability. So on your Titan mark, these are pretty much any mods that you want to run here, you can slot in, but that kind of shows you how self-sustained this entire build is. We're literally taking weapon damage on our boots, and our mods on our class item doesn't even matter because this build is that strong. It's all just from the subclass synergy going on and the exotic. The only mods that I would say are kind of important is the heavy-handed mod, so you can create those orbs of power, and the impact induction, so you can always have a healing grenade up. But I do overall think this is one of the best builds in the game, and when I sit back and look at it and look at all the classes and all the builds that I've done over the past couple years, this one always still comes back as ranking in the top 3 for sure. And if you're doing any type of solo content, or you need to survive, or you need extra damage, this is always there and always an option because it's not dependent on any artifact mods, and it's just been a top go-to build in the game for a very long time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, I hope you found it helpful, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a great rest of the day, and enjoy farming that dungeon out there.